Okay, hi. So our next program is What in the World is Sahithyam? Led by Sudarshan Mohan on vocal, and we also have Sahana Sreeram on violin, Karthick Narayanan on mridangam, and I didn't know Rao uncle was part of this, but he is.
I'm a surprise element.
Okay. Sudarshan Mohan is a student of Vidwan Gana Kala Vipanchi Kalai Mamani Shri R. Surya Prakash. Karthik Narayanan is a disciple of Krompet G. Suresh, and he is an All India Radio A-grade artist. And he's been recognized by several sabas with awards. And Sahana Sreeram is from Ashburn, Virginia, and she learns Carnatic violin from Sri Subhash Vinchamuri and Carnatic vocal from Kalai Mamani Srimati Charamati Ramachandran.
Sure.
Thank you all for staying and coming. Who's all been to a What in the World is kind of event before? Okay, great. So all of you know how the format goes. For those of you who haven't been here, I heard some mentions of the fact that it's like a lecture or anything. This is not a lectem. This is actually a very open forum. We're here as peers sharing what we love about Carnatic music with fellow peers and students. So we're not here lecturing to you from a guru standpoint or anything like that. We're all students on the stage. We're all on the continuum of learning. Some of us have been around longer than others or been in the journey longer than others, so we know a few more things and we're sharing our knowledge. So that's how this works. That being said, it's a very open forum. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to chime in at any point. Today, we're doing What in the World is Sahitya. So for the kids down here in the first row-ish, whoever's younger, if you're younger than, like, if you're not in middle school, you can answer this question. What does Sahitya mean? Don't play now? Okay. Anyone else have a stab at what Sahitya means? No? Yeah, again, there you go, lyrics. So Kamaladiti said lyrics. Kamaladiti is going to sing the RTP Kashiri next. She's from Toronto. I had said that you have to be younger than middle school to answer, but I guess you're in elementary school now.
But she was outside, so she
Yeah, I know. I was just messing with her.
She's very young.
So Sahitya means lyrics. So today we're going to talk about why lyrics are important. So with that, Rao Mama was so gracious to put a lot of the research behind this presentation together. Actually, not a lot. He pretty much did everything. I just came in and added some music to it. So I want to thank him for that. Yes, I'm going to take it away by explaining what Sahityam is and maybe the deeper meaning behind the song that we just heard.
Thank you, Sudarshan. Hari Om, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. I'm going to start with some Shanti Slokam, which is quite common rendered when you are presenting something on Vedic, literature, or even when you are learning something before Guru. The Shanti mantras are chanted, and I will explain a little bit of the context related to the music. And first of all, I will assure you that I am not going to sing here. And this is the first time I've been on the other side of the stage. I've always been either there or maybe doing some vote of thanks or introductions, stuff like that. But the thing I would like to start off with is I do not know anything. But as Sudarshan pointed out, it's a mutual learning. And we all know that music, just like any other fields, is a ocean. And I am there sitting maybe several thousand miles away from ocean, watching as a Rasika. But these people, I'm humbled and honored to be sitting here, but they have already touched the waters, whereas I am farther away. But they're experiencing, and we're going to listen more to them than me, but I will explain whatever little I know. I know that music is ocean. That is where I want to start off. So this sloka is Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunatu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastuma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So in this slokam, the Sahana Vavatu is between the Guru and the Shishya always, because they want to make sure that there is a common understanding and there are no differences, and they want to assure that that is the case with, throughout the journey of mutual learning. The Guru also learns in the process as much as the Shishya. So, and if you have noticed that I put some swarams, those are in the Vedas, like Udattam playing, Anudattam going down, and then Dirgha swaram going up. This is in Vedas, and it happens even in music. right? Some people you would have seen, how many of you attended sAhityam's Kacheri? Can you raise your hands? If you have been there from the beginning, that happened as part of the Saifa concert, he did his pitch or Shruti in using Omkara. So that is the reason why we were contemplating whether we should have Sobil Saptaswara to begin with or Naratanam is another alternative. But the reason we took Sobil Saptaswara was in the Charanam. So typically my understanding of any Kriti, especially Tyagaraja or his disciples, is the composer tries to make a statement in the Pallavi. How many of you know how the structure goes in youngsters? How does a typical Kriti look like? No, let him. Correct. So, just stick to that. Pallavi, the composer tries to make a statement or a question, could be. We will go into that also. In the case of a statement, meaning, he says that Shobillu Saptaswara Sundarada Bhajampave Manasa. That means he is saying that the 7 notes, Saptaswara, are the beauty or celestial divine elements for which the mind focus on them. And he explains that how those 7 notes emanate from the body, human body. Nabhi Hritkanta Rasana. That means from the bottom of the heart, the focal point or Nabhi, below the navel, to all the way through your heart and then reaching and culminating in the head or beyond that actually. So that is basically how the Omkaram happens. Because when you do Omkaram, there is Akara, Ukara, Makara, a combination. The creator, the sustainer, and the, I would say destroyer, but it is more like lion, the merging of the notes. So that's why I said in the beginning, certain people, certain musicians, instead of doing sapasa, they do omkara. That's just another alternative. So, and in the charanam, he goes on to say, this is why I said Vedas. I started with the Vedic slokam. Because Vedas are the essence of the, typically if you look at any kid performing well or otherwise, just the first thing we ask is, who is your guru? Or if it is something related to science, or if he is excelling in someone, who are your parents? It's a general tendency to ask. For music, it is Vedam. Because in Bhagavad Gita, some of you know that Lord Bhagavan Sri Krishna is Vedanam Samavedosmi. That means basically I am part of the Samaveda. He likes music, that's why he plays flute. So music has its derivatives or roots in Veda. And here it says Dhara, Rik. Quite often you hear Darare, Darare or something. Rik is that pronunciation that like Sudarshan did. Dhara, Rik, Sama, Samadula. And Rik is, why Rik? He said that Samavedam is music, but why Rik? Here, if you go for the Vara Gayatri Hridayamana, actually Gayatri Mantram, one should not say it, in front of it, because you are supposed to be chanted with your mind, focus. But Gayatri is the essence of the entire creation. So that's why people are doing Sandhyam daily, things like that, So, because it helps you grow as a person, both spiritually and philosophically. So, what is that? Sura is, we know, it is divine gods. Whereas Bhusura is Brahmana. That means some of these celestial gods we cannot see, but in the general world, Bhusura is somebody that you can always face. Whoever is chanting the Gayatri and whoever is regularly doing the Upasana, he is the Brahmana, not by caste or religion or whatever. Such people I go and Shubha Tyagaraju Inni Yada. That means he's saying that in such people I am residing, and though for those Tyagaraja is worshipping. That's one way to look at it. Tyagaraja as a person, the composer. Actually, you can also look at Tyagaraja is the deity in Tiruvarur. So you can also look at that perspective also, because he is worshipping Gayatri, because that's the ultimate force. So that's the reason why we chose this, because Omkaram is the essence of the universe. And now this is about what is Omkaram and how one can experience that. The how part we want to go into next is how one can achieve spiritual liberation by means of this. And Tyagaraja beautifully describes this in the next kriti. And let us listen to that from Sudarshan. Thank you. we mentioned about in Shobilu the Omkaram and the Gayatri Mantram. Here it says one, I mentioned about two types of, there may be more, but at least my perspective, lyrics. So, one is making a statement and then consolidating that statement through Anupallavi and Charanam is one way to look at it. In this case, it is, the Tyagaraja is asking a question, Moksham Galada Bhuvilo Jivan Muktula Gani Varalaku. That means those who have not achieved Jivan Mukti, that means salvation while you are alive. It's not like, I always used to think that before all this digging into it, one will achieve liberation only after the death or something like that. But that's not what his perspective is. You can achieve when you are alive. But how? So he says, he questions basically, there is no Jivan Mukti unless you do the following, which is in the Anupallavi and more substantiated in Charanam. So the Charanam part we look at it. Of course, Anupallavi says, those who are not having any real bhakti and Sangeeta Jnanam, the real one, is their salvation. He's just questioning that. And the Charanam says, Prana Nala Sanyoga. Those you who also do Gayatri, Bhumi Rapo Nalo Nilo Nabha. That means all the five elements. But in this case, he's basically saying Prana Nala, Anala. Prana is air and Anala is fire. Quite often we say fire in the belly, right? So it has to come from, referring to the showbiz of story, it has to come from the bottom of the heart and emanate as fire and then merge into the head through the constant meditation, and that can be done by Nadopasana, is what he is saying. Sanyogam Pranavanaadamu Saptaswaramulai Veenavadanorudayi Siva Manovidhamu. Lord Shankara, he loves Veena. So that is one instrument that is more ancient, we all know that, and also which produces good tones. And those saptaswarams that are coming from that, Shankara loves it. Again, I'm not talking about Shiva or anything. Shankara means Shamkaroti iti Shankara. So whoever does auspicious things for you is the Lord. And he gives you this happiness and moksham if you follow this procedure as mentioned in the Chaitanya. So that's what he's saying. Basically, you have to constantly meditate on Nadam using those 7 notes. That's the essence of this particular composition.
So while Rao Mama was explaining that so eloquently, I noticed, I think, maybe 10 to 15 yawns. So I'm going to give a little analogy about how we can use this kind of information, why understanding Sahityam like this can be useful for us as kids and students, okay? So, just take this composition, for example. So here Tyagaraja is talking about attaining moksha, right? That's, let's say, the end goal. And to do that, you have to have all of your checks and balances in order. You have to pay attention to all aspects of your spirit, of your life. You have to pay attention to your work, your school. You have to pay attention to your mental well-being. You have to be kind to others. That's kind of the greater meaning that we can take from this. So let's use that analogy from music. If the goal then is to attain really good sangeetam, is to be a good artist or even be a good rasika, you not only should enjoy or do well the sangeetam aspects, so the shruti suddham, swara suddham, laya suddham, the little arithmetic that we like to do, the purattams, the kanakir, the swarams, and all of the fun things. But you should also make sure that you have sahitya shuddha. You can't let that go, because if that one piece is gone, then you're not going to attain that goal. Even if that one piece is gone from the wheel, you're not whole. Your music is not whole. So this entire kind of first part of the presentation is just to illustrate, one, the benefit that we can get from a spiritual perspective, that we can understand the meanings of these sutras, if we understand, for us, maybe youth that are getting a bit older into college and a little bit older, we'll soon in 10, 20 years, maybe have our own kids. And then, our parents who are, moved from India to here and they have this knowledge from when they were young, we're bereft of that because we grew up here. So now we have two different cultures that we're balancing. How do we pass on some of these things, to our kids? We can't go back to India and do like a sabbatical and learn everything, right? So, but we can do it in this way. We can pay attention. If we like music, if we like Carnatic music, we make sure to pay attention to the lyrics and learn something ourselves. And that's maybe something we can pass on. So these are all different things that we can take. I want to move on now to talk about, I think we both want to move on to talk about some kritis that have deeper internal meanings to illustrate why it might be fun to just learn the Sahityam, because you kind of gain some different things from it. So maybe I'll see the next video. We can explain.
Shiva mantra munaku majiva Shiva mantra munaku majiva madhava mantra munaku rajiva
Before I go into this is probably the first time I heard Sudarshan sing is like 5 years back. NCYCSE or something.
Longer than that. Come on, like 2010?
I'm too old to remember the dates and all. That is when we had first this conversation. Before I go into this, I wanted to just expand on that Sahityam. If you look at those who, how many of you have learned Vedam officially or whatever?
What's the definition of Veda? What
Yeah.
included Veda?
Right. That's a good. I'm going to. But I wanted to react based on how Vedams are divided. Vedam. Okay, I'll give a definition. The etymological word is with. With means to know. That is from there on the vidya, what we call as education comes. But Vedam is divided further into Samhita, Brahmanam, Aranyakam. And the way it goes is you learn how to chant and hymns and all the karmas, karma kanda. Actually, at a broad level, it is divided Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Jnana Kanda is where Upanishads, all the Jnanam is there, right? Knowledge, embodiment of all the knowledge is there. But Tyagaraja actually uses this in Samadhavagamana Charanam, Veda Siro Mahatruja Saptasvara. That is another beautiful composition. Why does he call Veda Siro? Because Vedas have a head. The head is always been Karmakanda, first one, but he refers to Upanishads as the Vedasira because that's the head is where the buddhi or intellect is there. So he is referring to Upanishad basically, and that is where the all the Matruja Saptaswara, Nadachala Deepa. So there he is actually referring to Lord Krishna. But the thing is, Vedas, other than Karmakanda and Jnanakanda, but they are broadly divided into Samhita, Brahmana, Aranya. I think I looked at it as much as I could, but I could not find really Sahityam versus Samhita, because Samhita means something that you are telling good for the good. So at a very high level lyrics you can say, but what are, as Sudarshan said, what are we getting out of it? So it's something that tells us how to be in association. Sahityam. There is actually a beautiful definition I came across, which is, it says, Sahityena bhavaha sahityam. That is the thing having a good counsel. Somebody who tells you something good. You would see a Tyagaraja composition on this. Hitavu maatalento baga nerpitivi. Sarasa sound. So he uses.
What ragam is that song? No one, middle school or younger?
We'll go there, but not
Okay,
first.
not in that.
Okay. So we will jump on to the. So the meaning behind the Evarini Nirnai Chinnagai is what Sudarshan sang was the charanam. There are two interesting tidbits here. I want you to just be aware of it. It's more like a guideline. There is what is called a Dvitiyakshara Prasa. So any composition you take, the Pallavi second letter and the Anupallavi second letter will always be the same. This is the structure or framework that composers use. So Mokshamagalada Sakshatkara. You see that? Moksha Sakshat. So it's just there is nothing, it's more like a guideline. Suppose you forget something, it happens, right? You can use this as a guideline. So even for the first one, Shobhillu, Nabhi, Shobhillu, Nabhi. Not that Tyagaraja uses it. Every composer uses it. Every composition. It's more like a prasa, a rhyming that they follow. That's just a side tidbit. But the meaning here is very interesting. I didn't know until my maternal grandfather told me about this. And after that I started looking at spiritual heritage of Tyagaraja. My references are the following: Spiritual Heritage of Tyagaraja, and then Tyagaraja Gayartha Kunchika by NCH Krishnamacharya, who is a Sangeeta Kalanidhi as well as a Sahitya Kalanidhi. And he is the only one to have both. So let us pay our respects to him. He is a violinist par excellence from Andhra Pradesh, and Dr. Pontutamma's husband is one of his primary disciples. So we have to salute them and remember them, because the work he has done is enormous. He has not only given direct meaning but also more detailed meaning, and I am, with his blessings or whatever, I am converting them into just translating them and posting it. I would love to do it on Nadavepanthi website at some point, but that's a side discussion. Siva mantramunaku ma jeevam, Madhava mantramunaku rajeevam is what he's saying. If you know this detail of this particular aspect, I bow to you, is what Tyagaraja is saying in Charanam. What does it mean? Siva mantram is what? Anybody?
Yeah, just a one-liner. You can pick one. What would it be?
Correct.
That's it.
Actually, I think you don't say Om there, but Namah Shivaya, because that's why it became Panchakshari, Namah Shivaya. And Madhava mantram?
Yeah, that's
Namo Narayanaya. I think Om is allowed there. 2 + 5 + 1, yeah, 8. Ashtakshari, this is Ashtakshari. So, What is that here? If you just look at plain, you won't make out anything. But Namah Shivaya, if you remove Ma, see, that is the beauty of our languages. A single letter can change the meaning, and if you are not consciously putting the effort to put that, you won't. That means you don't know the meaning, and that doesn't serve the purpose. So if you remove the Ma, it gives you a negative. In fact, that Shivam is Mangalam, Shubham. So that's the alternate meanings for that. That means Na Shivaya, you are saying. That means it's not an auspicious thing, is what we are saying. And he's saying Ma is a Jiva word. That means it's like a seed letter, seeded letter that is so dependent on it. If you remove that, it's going to change the whole meaning. Similarly, Madhava Mantram is Namo Narayanaya. If you remove Ra, Rajivam. That's why Rajivam comes. Rama is called as Rajiva, Rajivakshara. So you take these two letters, you get Rama. And that is what he is saying, that if somebody knows Rama is so powerful mantram, because these two, and in Vedams, for instance, Namakam, there is a Namah Shivaya that comes much later in the Anuvakams. And Vedams are eternal, but in these Vedams, Ramanama is already embedded. That means Rama is not that Treta Yugam, he has come into existence or anything. Rama has existed even before that. It's just for certain, to take care of certain elements, he has appeared in that form, but Nama is there eternally. So that's what he's saying here. If those who can decipher this meaning and live in that meaning, not just knowing is not enough, such people like Bo is what Tyagaraja is saying.
So the nugget that we can take from this is Rao Vadlamani has laid out how beautiful and very intricate our languages are. If you take out one thing or change one thing, it changes the meaning. So what that means for us vocalists is that if you don't pay attention to sAhityam, you might be singing something very different than what you're intending to sing, or what the composer intended to sing. So we have a bunch of examples of how, common examples of how in popular songs you can completely mess up the meaning. But Rao, I think we're going to have to skip all the way to just for the sake of time, we're going to have to skip all the way to the second part of the presentation. That's okay with you. But it's okay. I mean, these are things that you can pick up and other people have talked about. I'm going to skip ahead to the part of the presentation where we talk about, basically I talked about, let's avoid sacrificing Sahitya Shuddham for the sake of musicality. So here's, some examples where, for example, you can kind of split everything up and just dissect it and sing like that. But at least my humble opinion, so follow whatever your guru says, obviously. But my humble opinion is, particularly as kids growing up in the United States, there is already a connotation when we sing that we don't know the language. So we're there, audiences will be particularly tuned to their Google search for searching some of the lyrics and looking them up. And this has happened to me. And then come up to you after the kacheri and point out your mistakes. So it's particularly important for us to pay attention to this stuff. And then at least for the first time you sing that line, sing it right. So here it's yantani ne varnintunu. It's not yanta ninne. You see a lot of people singing yanta ninne. So that completely changes the meaning.
Yes.
It's the opposite meaning.
Yeah.
And what,
It's like, how much should I be describing you? It's like out of frustration versus saying, how can I describe you? Yeah.
So, okay, but we're going to skip to the second part, which is this right here. Okay, Sudarshan, Rao, I understand that sAhityam is important. Thanks for talking at me for 45 minutes and giving me a lecture. But what do I do about it? I'm learning music, I'm doing the best I can, I'm singing what I can. If I'm making mistakes, how do I know? So number one is use your resources. So the first resource is your guru. So maybe after every class, or maybe after you sing the song, so you probably learn a song and you sing it back to your guru. At that point, ask your guru, is the sAhityam right? Am I pronouncing everything correctly? And then do a little bit of your own research. So these are great resources. if you're serious about music, I highly recommend looking at TK Govindrao's books. So the resources that Rao uncle mentioned for Tyagaraja are wonderful as well, but the problem is those are written completely in Telugu. So unless you can read Telugu very well, which I can't at all. I can't even read Tamil very well. I can read it, but not very well. So these are completely in English, but they also have Devanagari script. So if you want to refer to the correct alphabet and the correct pronunciation, you can get someone who knows Devanagari and refer to it. But they're written in English, and they have the stresses and pronunciations, and you can check. I always recommend double checking because our tradition is an oral tradition. So even in DK Govindra books, it's been found that there are some small mistakes. So to double check, I highly recommend these websites, the Vaibhavam blogspot sites. So they're vaibhavam.blogspot.org, and depending on what you put before Vaibhavam, it's different. So Tyagaraja Vaibhavam is all the Tyagaraja Kritis. Guru Guha Vaibhavam is all Mutsamrish Kritis. And Shamakrishna Vaibhavam is all Chamasati Kritis. And he has one other composer that he has on the website. This is a key resource for me. You know why? Because I don't know the language. I'm going to be straight up and honest. I do a lot to pay attention to Sahityam, but I don't know the language. So if I want to know what a Kriti means, they give you the word-by-word meaning. So this is the word-by-word meaning for Moksha Mugala. So every word means in the context of the greater meaning of the song.
So, the other time was that's how I know as well.
Yeah.
Did you like before the last activities?
Hadidasa Vaibhavam, I'm not sure if that exists. So that's the thing, there's only 4 composers. I think there's a Trinity and there's one other composer. I'm not sure, I forgot who the last one is. So I can't answer you. I don't know, I don't think it's Anamacharya, it's some other composer. But anyway, if for any composers that are not the composers written by TKG or the ones on the Vaibhavam site, you unfortunately have to do your digging online and then refer to your guru. And then that way your guru can look it up and guide you. Or if that doesn't work, find someone in the community like Rao uncle who knows Telugu pretty well. I know several people who know Tamil very well. My dad does. So if you know some of these people in the community, reach out to them. Shoot Rao uncle an email or call him and then ask him, how do I sing this properly? That's what I did religiously like 3 years ago when I wanted to get better at this. And then I always make sure to practice Tamil Kritis in front of my dad so that he can yell at me for getting everything wrong. So then, now you know the pronunciations, okay? How do you make sure you're doing it right? I've put a couple of, a screenshot of Shoguru Saptaswara of my writing. I think it's very valuable to develop your own script to reflect our languages. Don't just write in English, because if it's a D, how do you know if it's the, or the? You don't. So, there are several resources like this that goes through the entire Sanskrit alphabet and puts the English derivative. Find one of these and maybe borrow this script when writing your kritis up, when writing your notation. Write your own lyrics. Even if you don't write the swarams, write your own lyrics and do this. I personally modified it a little bit so that it's easy for me to just look at it at a glance and get it. So you can notice the English on these resources, this is for Telugu, the English is all in lowercase, right? So let me show you my script for a Tirupugar in Tamil. You can see that I use capital A for the right, instead of the So Marukkulavia. The double K says that there's a pause there. It's not Marukkulavia, it's Marukkulavia, right? So use things like this to help you. Malaranai, the capital N, the na. I know a lot of my peers and also a lot of you struggle with the na. You have to get that right, because if you change that, there's so many meanings that just twist. So these are things that we have to work on in practice. Okay, that's all fine, Sudarshan, but I don't sing, I can't sing, or even if I do sing, I don't want to sing. I play the violin. What do I do? So, Samyuska, not Samyuska, I'm sorry, Sahana is going to play a little demonstration and then
So for violinists, Sahityam is actually equally as important. Even though we're not actually singing the lyrics, it's important to get that right going for each word. We actually tend to think in terms of swarams instead of the Sahityam. So sometimes it's pretty hard to differentiate between something like a Chitta swaram and a Madhyamakalam, which is like a faster Sahityam at the end of the song. So as an example, I'm just going to play the charanam of one song, which is a Madhyamakalam, and then a different chitta swaram, another song with the same not Sahityam going. So that was without the Sahityam going, and then here's the chitta swaram. The bowing, the way that I bowed it, it sounded very similar, hopefully. When you're playing Sahityam, it's really important to put emphasis on the words that actually have meaning, or on the words that come in a certain place in the talam, just so that it sounds very different and so that it retains the song's meaning. So with that in mind, I'm going to play the same example, but with the correct Sahityam bowing. I don't know how different that sounded, but I think just the Sahityam.
What Kruti is that? Does anyone know? Lochana Kama Lochana.
So I think it would have been a little bit less apparent if I just played everything as swarams, like separate swarams. So yeah, it's important to play the Sahityam. Just a few other points for violin. When you're learning a song from your teacher, it's really important to keep the Sahityam in your mind. So either learn the song vocally or just memorize the Sahityam just so that you're memorizing the sangatis instead of just the line of swarams. Sometimes when we just memorize a line of swarams, we group the swarams together rather than the words. So as an example, in the Kriti Ma Kendara Vicharamu, in the Anupallavi, the Sahityam is Saketa Raja Kumara, but sometimes we play it as Saketa Raja Kumara, which has no meaning. Yeah, so that could, and we play it like that because it's easier to group those swarams together rather than the actual Sahityam. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another is when we are accompanying in a student's journey, it gets increasingly important to play the Sahityam when you're performing and accompanying, just because you need to know the Sahityam of the songs. It's very helpful. And the Nedival line especially, if you don't know the Nedival line, it's just going to sound like a bunch of swarams, which is basically what you're playing, but you need to make it sound like words. Yeah, so as my last example, I'm just going to play a Chitta Swaram and a Madhyamakalam of Mari Vere Gati, and this is actually really hard to differentiate in this song especially because the Sahityam corresponds to the Swaram, so it comes at the same place as the Swarams. So just with the right emphasis and accents on the words, hopefully it'll sound a little bit different than the Chitta Swaram. So first the Chitta Swaram, then the Madhyamakalam. A part of the Chitta Swaram. Now I'll play it with more emphasis on the different words and more gamakam, and that'll be Sahityam. So that's the Sahityam. Hopefully it sounded a little bit different, but that's basically how you differentiate the Sahityam from Swarams in violin, which is basically the most important part.
Mridangam artist, you can't fall asleep either. Yeah, sure.
I think the mridangam artist also should work.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Sahityam. It's also very different, and
Yep.
They should know, right?
Exactly. So, mridangam artists, you shouldn't fall asleep either. You have to know what, if you think that the vocalist is singing swaram both times after the anupallavi and charanam, then you're going to play it the same way. You need to know that in Variveregati, after the anupallavi, the artist will play swarams, and then after the charanam, they'll play the swara sahityam. And you have to give different bhavam and different emphasis. You see, he was softer, he had more gukki, he put the stress in different spots. So, yeah. That's important as well. So Ramama, I'll let you kind of sum things up a little bit and then
Okay. In summary, we know that it's important to focus on Sahityam, and don't feel shy to ask your guru to explain what it takes for you to understand, so that when you go and perform, I think from your experience, at least from my experience, I have seen that there is a lot of chemistry between the performer and the rasikas. If you don't know the meaning, and if you're not carrying that emotions, and it's all about emotions. And in fact, I encourage you to look at this book. I think thanks to Ashok who has given me this book, and appreciating the Carnatic music. And Ravikaran Sangeet Kalani, Chitravina Ravikaran, he says there are two aspects. One is emotional, and the other is intellectual. First stage for any practitioner of music is emotional only, and emotions come when you know the meaning. And I have personally felt some ragas are the meaning of compositions. Extempore, you get tears. I don't know whether it happened to you, but there are certain ragas that just the melody of raga itself gives you that. And if you go into the meaning and understand, for instance, Venkatagirisham, if you understand that, it just takes you at a different level. And if you can connect with the audience, it's much more helpful. And in conclusion, we should also be fortunate that we are maybe inheritors of this rich legacy of Carnatic music, which according to again Ravikaran, he says it's ancient from Vedic times, and he also refers to ancient Tamil culture, that music has been there. I strongly advise you to look at this book. It's very informative. On a concluding note, I would love to delve into that Endaro Mahanubhavalu. We all heard that in Nadavipanchi, Vagay Karvai, when we had that and all. The 9th Charanam, before the final one, really talks about what are the aspects that one has to have in order to be considered to be a Mahanubhava. So, and I would request Sudarshan to sing that, and then we will look at that meaning more closely.
How can you speak after it?
Okay, that we can do that. I think for the lack of time, I'm just referring to that. In the 9th charam, he says, Bhagavata Ramayana Gita Shruti Shastra Purana Varnam. That means the secrets of all those shastras. And those people should also be following Bhava, Raga, Laya. The aspects of Bhavam, Ragam, Layam have to be there in everybody. And for such people, I hope, is what Chagrada is saying. The Bhavam comes only if you know what the meaning is. Otherwise, it's, you are just singing it for the sake of singing. So that is what Chagrada is emphasizing on in the 9th chapter. And we will conclude with that.
Yeah. Before delving into it and finishing, I just want to mention that when you're learning the Pancharatnams, pay attention to Sahityam. Because the swarams go one way, and the Sahityam goes over here, and then you can't break up. For example, Nerigi Bhavala Galayadi Soukya Mujay. You hear that all the time. Bavara Galayadi. It's Raga, not Bavara Galayadi, right? Raga Layadi, right? So things like that, you find it in all the Pancharatnams. As students, we have to make sure that we don't, break it up. Don't take the breath in the wrong places. I'll do my best to not. Hopefully conclude with this.
Ramayana Gita Shastra Purana Shiva Mudamula Gudamulan Mupari Mukoti Sunatarangamula Bhavam Bunaneri Bhavara Gadi Saukya Gucha Chirayu Kulgalgini Ravati Sutatule Kagaraja Pule Navadendaro
So the other thing I wanted to mention is thank you all for listening. So this What in the World series, we've done lots of different ones. What in the World is RTP, I think we covered. Did we do that? What in the World is Sthanam only? Oh, What in the World is Sthanam? We only covered Sthanam. Oh, so we need to revisit the Pandami part. Okay, so we did What in the World is Sthanam. We did What in the World is Manodharma. We did What in the World is a Taniyartanam for mridangams. So what I want to get at is if there's any ideas or, that you guys have for putting together a presentation or ideas for topics that we should cover, please do let us know. You can let us know anytime with our email, but we are also planning to, put something on our website about, proposing a topic and maybe helping us develop the presentation. And you can work with us and hopefully we can put together something together. If anything you're interested in and work on it. So we'll try to do more of these.
We have some ideas, but we
also want to know what you want to know.
So we should do one on Medical, and I have a question about Medical for you.
Yeah.
So she brought up a great point about for a violinist, the sAhityam is very difficult when you're on stage accompanying.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, coming back to you, not Cooper, what is your focus when you're delivering Medical on stage? And do you ever change your Medical? Do you ever factor how the accompanist are doing in terms of Medical? Obviously, it's very difficult to pick up the words if you've never heard the song.
Got it.
If you've never heard the ragam even, sometimes
Sure.
you're focused on the music as a
Yeah.
So, do you ever change your approach, or do you ever, what's going through your head when you're doing that?
Could you summarize the
Yeah. So Abhishek wanted to know, obviously violinists have a tough time with Medical because they not only have to worry about the musical monodrome on stage because they're a company, they're reacting to us, but they also have to make sure not to, destroy the sAhityam, for lack of a better term. But but at the same time, they may have not heard the song before. They may have not heard the line before that. So one, what is, I think, a vocalist challenge in Medical, and two, do I consider that when I sing? Okay. So generally about vocalist challenge, I think we have it a bit easier because we have mouth, tongue, and syllables. So, and we learn the song, and we get to practice for a long time. So be considered as a leading artist. Make sure to tell your accompanist what you're performing, particularly when you're starting. Everyone is young, right? So that's a bit of kacheri dharma when you're a student. Make sure to tell your violin accompanist what you're going to perform on stage so that they can also know a little bit. So that's the first way to tackle it. As a student and as peers, look out for each other. So if I am going to, there was a plan to show you guys how to pick a Nenava line in a Tamil composition, and I was going to render that on stage. And so I mentioned it to Sahana last week, and I recorded it for her so that way she could look at it. Right? So make sure to do things like that so that, the goal of the kacheri is to make it really pleasant for the audience and for all of you to grow as a group during the experience. It's not for you to be there and be awesome, and then for the violinist to, roll around and
There's
not.
growing in that too.
I know there's growing in that, but that'll happen naturally. So as a violinist, if you don't know the kriti, when you're faced with doing it kind of on the spot, obviously you have to adapt, and I think that those lessons will be learned. But it's so important as a main artist to look out for your accompanist. Because that's how I would answer it. As I am rendering Netable, I will be honest and say that I usually don't consider how the violinist is doing. That's not my place at that time. I'm just focused on making sure that, that the kachiri is moving along well, but if the violinist feels uncomfortable, I may deviate. So for example, if it's a ragam like Harali or Sama or something like that has long, or Revati or something that has huge gaps between swarams, and I'm trying to do really fast Madhyama Kala, Netable, and the violinist can't keep up, then I'll stop and I'll move on. So that's something I can do as a vocalist. But typically I don't pay attention to it.
What in the world is 72 raga Malakarta? How each raga, that is one. There are several possibilities, and then Dikshita Kriti itself is a big. So
I don't know if I'm qualified to do that one. Someone else will have to take it on. Anyway, thank you all
Thank
so
you
much.
all.